Good evening. An influx of new drugs is creating a serious problem in Welsh prisons. That's according to the Prison Officers Association. It says violent behaviour in prisons is increasing and blames new psychoactive substances, which used to be classed as legal highs until the law changed last year. It comes as new figures show the number of ambulance call-outs to prisons has doubled over a 4-year period. Gareth Breyer has this special report.
Riots last year in Birmingham Prison. £2 million of damage caused in just 12 hours, with inmates even posing in helmets stolen from staff. It's just one of a string of serious incidents in our prisons, including here in Wales. One of the things fueling the problems is the influx of psychoactive substances, or so-called legal highs, into the prison system. Now, though they were outlawed last year, they're still causing havoc in our prisons.
It's kind of like a sledgehammer blow, if you like. Yeah, it's just knocked the prison service sideways.
Steve Masterman served several prison sentences before turning his life around. He now helps people with drug problems.
It's quite common for people to be in prison and actually develop, an addiction then, if you like, or dependency upon these new and emerging psychoactive substances. Whereas before, they may not have even heard of it. In prison, it's easy, like I say, it's readily available, and, it's the drug of choice at the moment in prisons.
People across the prison service have said access to these drugs, combined with a shortage of staff, has led to a violent and volatile prison population.
And it's not just the prison service that's under pressure. Because security measures mean it takes longer to reach patients in prison, ambulance staff are often tied up for longer on these calls. And paramedics have told me that can have a significant impact on the service's ability to deal with other emergencies.
Over 4 years, the number of 999 calls from Welsh prisons which required ambulances doubled, from around 200 in 2012 to over 400 in 2015-16. Now, the figures don't show the reason for each call, but most people with experience of the prison system say it's due in part to more prisoners taking these substances. Now there are calls for more to be done before the largest prison in the UK opens in Wrexham later this month.
I think we've got real problems within the Welsh prison system in relation to the staffing levels. We're going to have a new prison that's going to be open shortly at Berwyn that's going to have a major problem, 2,000 prisoners going in there. All of those issues require major investment, major staffing, and within the Welsh society where we are and where the prisons are based, we feel that we're not getting the resources that are required, and we call on the government to give more investment.
The Ministry of Justice says it's taken immediate action to deal with problems like drugs. And it says it's also going to spend an extra £100 million a year on 2,500 extra frontline staff. But it points out that the issues the prison service faces are long-standing ones, which won't be resolved in weeks or months.
Gareth Breyer with that special report. An illegal dog breeder from Ceredigion who left puppies close to death has been banned from keeping dogs for 4 years. 31-year-old Richard Jones from Llanunen near Lampeter was convicted of 2 counts of illegal dog breeding and 21 counts of causing unnecessary suffering to dogs following 2 raids last June. You may find some of the images at the beginning of Matt Murray's report distressing.
Left to go blind and close to death, these dogs were suffering with chronic skin conditions and were described in court as mentally stressed as they were left in the dark without exercise. Today, Richard Jones was banned from keeping dogs for 4 years and given a 9-week suspended prison sentence after being convicted of 2 counts of illegal dog breeding and 21 counts of causing unnecessary suffering. Jones had been running a licensed premises near Lampeter with over 70 dogs, breeding 40 litters a year up until 2015, when the local authority decided not to renew his licence. But he carried on breeding until it was raided by the police and council officers in June last year. They found 113 dogs suffering in 2 different locations, and the bodies of dead dogs discovered in old fertiliser bags. Jones's barn is extremely remote. It's in this field in the middle of nowhere. There isn't anything around for miles, but it was here that officers from Ceredigion Council found dogs in complete darkness and some close to death. But now, months after that operation and Jones being convicted of causing unnecessary suffering, you can still hear animals being kept inside this barn today. It was ruled today that the 23 dogs still remaining here will be removed at the start of next month. Linda Goodman is the founder of the animal welfare campaign group Cariad. She described it as heartbreaking that the animals were still at the premises and expressed her disappointment with today's sentence.
That's no justice. It's no justice for the dogs that are still there, and it's no justice for all the dogs that have suffered and died in the whole time that Ceredigion Council have known that we had concerns about this breeder. As I say, there were up to 70 dogs being bred from. He was selling them through puppy dealers, licensed pet shops. So no one ever really came here. Nobody knew this place existed.
But as West Wales has been labelled the puppy farm capital of the UK, campaigners feel more still needs to be done to stop this suffering.
Matt Murray there. South Wales Police has warned people to consider the impact of social media messages following the death of a 14-year-old girl from Swansea. Nia James was found dead on Monday. Although her death is not being treated as suspicious, officers have asked anyone with information to contact them. The force says action will be taken against anyone who posts abusive, threatening or insulting messages online. A minute's silence has been held at a Flintshire paper mill where a worker died. Contractor Austin Thomas was killed when he was hit by a bucket loader at UPM Shotton on Monday. Fellow workers at the factory held the silence along with colleagues at other sites across the UK. An investigation into Mr Thomas's death is ongoing. 5 drug dealers have been jailed for a total of 12 years after they were arrested in separate raids in Llanelli. Samuel Thorne, Philip Williams, Debbie Wood, David Williams and Darren Polverino all admitted drug supply offences at Swansea Crown Court. They were caught as part of Dyfed Powys Police's Operation Panther last summer, which was prompted following a rise in drug-related deaths in the town. In the past hour, it's been confirmed that the Neath Labour MP Christina Rees has been appointed Shadow Welsh Secretary in a reshuffle by the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn. She replaces Joe Stevens, who resigned over Brexit. Well, our parliamentary correspondent David Cornock is at Westminster for us. So, David, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, Lucy, Christina Rees is the 4th person to hold this role since Jeremy Corbyn became leader only 17 months ago, the 5th since the general election in 2015. Premier League football managers last about as long, but it's an important role. Welsh Labour's main voice here at Westminster. Christina Rees was elected MP for Neath at the 2015 general election. Her background has been in the law, but she's also achieved success on the sporting field. She's a former Welsh squash international, won over 100 caps for her country, and I'm told is an expert on strategy and coaching in squash, and that might come in very useful given the current difficulties around Jeremy Corbyn's top table.
Yes, what will happen to other rebels then, David?
Well, last night, 8 Welsh Labour MPs voted against Jeremy Corbyn's orders, against the bill to trigger Article 50 and allow the Prime Minister to begin the process of Brexit. Among them, Kevin Brennan, the MP for Cardiff West. Now, normally when frontbenchers like Kevin Brennan, who's a Shadow Arts Minister, rebel, they are dismissed. But Jeremy Corbyn's approach is slightly different. So even though Mr Brennan rebelled and in normal circumstances would lose his job, the signs are tonight that he and other frontbench rebels are going to stay in place. Jeremy Corbyn, after all the resignations and the problems of the last year or so, is quite short of options.
David, thank you. Our parliamentary correspondent David Cornock at Westminster. Now, it's one of the most picturesque parts of the country, but Pembrokeshire Council says it's fighting a losing battle trying to maintain the coastal road through Newgale. Drop-in sessions are being held to explain the authorities' ideas on how to stop the area being cut off during bad weather, as David Grundy reports.
On a crisp winter's day, the 3-mile stretch of beach in Newgale is a popular spot. It's a relaxed and peaceful scene, but the elements aren't always so forgiving. 3 years ago, heavy rain resulted in chaos for people using the road behind the beach. 10 people had to be rescued after a bus was hit by a large wave during high winds and high tides. It's a fight against the forces of nature, a fight the experts say nature will win.
The shingle bank behind us is becoming more unstable with sea level rise and climate change. And the consultants have advised us that in about 20 years, the shingle bank will become unsustainable. So common sense suggests then that we actually build that road, start to think about building that road now.
The County Council's looking at a number of options on show at the Duke of Edinburgh pub, which has itself been flooded countless times. But elevating the current road and reinforcing the sea defences aren't deemed to be realistic because of predictions about how high sea levels will rise in years to come. The proposals include building a bridge behind this pub. Another option is a bypass that would skirt around the top of the valley, bypassing Newgale altogether. Both options would see the pub and surf shop being left to let nature take its course.
I think it's a shame that anything that alters what we've got, which is absolutely beautiful, I think there's not many people who wouldn't agree with that, is there?
Bollocks is vital for the local community in order that we can get access down here, but also for emergency access.
A few miles up the road is Solva Woolen Mill. At 110 years old, it's the oldest working woolen mill in Pembrokeshire. Its owners say it's vital there's good access to bring the tourists in and to get the mill's products out.
We have got to see something happen here, because if we don't, this peninsula will just cease to exist. Or, you know, most of the businesses won't continue to survive because most of them rely on tourism. And if there's no, there'll be difficulties getting supplies in here.
The A487 isn't a trunk road, so it's the council and not the Welsh Government that has to maintain it. Any new road will take time and money. Both are things Newgale might not have much of.
Still to come in the programme, a sneak preview behind the scenes in the Wales women's camp as they prepare to take on England in the Six Nations, balancing training with the day job.
To make the Six Nations squad is always a huge sort of overwhelming achievement because it makes all of that hard work and all of those sacrifices that we make worth it.
Attitudes towards people with mental health problems have become more positive in recent years. A poll run by the mental health campaign Time to Change Wales suggests there's been a shift in public attitudes in the last 4 years, with more than 3/4 of people giving a positive response to questions around mental health. James Williams has the details.
It's more common than you may think. Out of every 4 people, one of us will experience mental health problems in any given year. In this lineup, Andy from Rhyl is that person.
I had a breakdown in 2002, ended up getting kicked out of the house, and in 2003 I found out that I'd got bipolar.
Was it a relief when you were diagnosed?
Yeah, it was. It was really therapeutic actually, because once I actually knew what was wrong, it made it so much easier to understand where I'd gone wrong and why I'd gone wrong.
Do you think there's still a stigma attached to mental health issues?
Of course there is. It's absolutely rife. You know, because social stigma, it's kind of like a leper.
But whereas almost 72% of us said we had a positive attitude towards mental health problems back in 2012, a recent survey by the mental health campaign Time to Change Wales suggests an almost 5% shift, with now more than 3/4 of us responding positively.
There's still a lot of work to do, so we know from the evidence that there are areas where the stigma is not shifting or not shifting fast enough. There's a particular problem with men. There's an issue for people in ethnic minority communities. It's a big problem amongst children and young people. So I think that one of the things we want to do today, as well as noting where we've got to in terms of shifting stigma, is to think, what do we want to do next in Wales?
Pottery is one of the more popular classes on offer at the Huts workshop in Newcastle Emlyn, a charity working with adults with mental health challenges.
I have autism and ADHD, but adult ADHD. I mean, my parents said there's nothing wrong. They would say, no, it's just, you're just eccentric. But it's not true. There's definitely something wrong. Like when you get depression or you feel down, it's not like just feeling down. It's like the whole world is. There's just no reason to be here. There's no light at the end of the tunnel, and you just can't get out of it. and you do need help.
I suffer with bipolar, which is a hereditary condition. Before I was diagnosed, I used to feel the only way I could describe myself as a child and a teenager was I felt like a Martian. I must admit, before I was diagnosed with bipolar, I used to be very worried about people with bipolar disorder. And when I was diagnosed, it did make me panic a little bit. I find it easier myself to accept people with mental health problems now, after being here.
A change in attitude, but it's still a work in progress.
James Williams reporting. More than 1 in 5 public toilets have been closed by councils in Wales in the last 3 years. The Welsh Local Government Association says councils have faced significant cuts in funding, which has impacted on public toilet provision. Campaigners say urgent action is needed to provide services for vulnerable people, such as the elderly and those with disabilities.
People who have never suffered from or don't know anybody who suffers from an illness or are reliable on toilets won't necessarily understand that it is a big deal. It is a big deal to be able to walk somewhere or go somewhere and be normal.
BBC Radio Wales and Radio Cymru both ended 2016 with a small rise in the number of listeners compared with the rest of the year. The latest audience figures show Radio Wales attracted 375,000 listeners between October and December, while 114,000 people tuned in to Radio Cymru. Well, Rob Howley has named his side to face England for Saturday's Six Nations clash in Cardiff, and Claire is here with all the details for us.
Lucy, thank you very much. Hello, good evening. Yes, Rob Howley has made just 2 changes from the side that beat Italy in Rome, and although Dan Biggar and George North are named in the starting 15, there is still a question mark over their fitness. It's no secret too that Wales wanted the roof shut, but England don't agree, so it'll be open to the elements come Saturday afternoon. Both took knocks in Rome, and Dan Biggar and George North are named but not guaranteed to start on Saturday. Rob Howley says he'll make the call as late as possible.
We'll go to the day of the game, so I think that pretty important. Is a big game. Both players want to be part of that game, as you'd expect. So we're giving them every opportunity to be fit.
So this is how Wales line up. Props Rob Evans and Thomas Francis both come into the side after impressing from the bench out in Rome. They join Ken Owens in the front row. Jake Ball and skipper Alan Wyn-Jones again partner in the second row. And Sam Warburton, Justin Tipperick and Ross Moriarty make up the back row. It's an unchanged back line with Dan Biggar again partnering Rhys Webb at half-back. And Scarlet's duo Scott Williams and Jonathan Davis continue in the midfield, with Liam Williams, George North and Lee Halfpenny making up the back three. And the bench sees a welcome return. Fit again Talupe Faletau is back in the 23. And Howley knows he'll need his experienced men. Wales will need to be at their best.
You know, they've gone 15 games unbeaten. Their side playing with confidence, a huge amount of self-belief, and I got no doubt that they will be ready for this game.
Wales have made no secret of their desire to play under a shut roof. In the past, it served them well and made for an intimidating atmosphere. But England have struck the first blow, insisting the Principality Stadium roof remains open. Protocol says there has to be an agreement between the two sides, and Eddie Jones has won the first battle. He's made 2 changes to the side that narrowly beat France, and he's out to unsettle Wales any way he can. He was in a playful mood today.
We're prepared to win, you know, we're prepared for any shenanigans that might go on, and we're looking forward to it. Yeah, I think we're bloody excited about playing there, to be honest. They're a cunning lot, the Welsh, aren't they? Yeah, they always have been. And, you know, they got goats, they got daffodils, they got everything. So, who knows, who knows?
The defending champions arrive in Cardiff aiming to extend their unbeaten record to 16 matches. Wales will be out to stop them in their tracks and pull the wheels off their chariot. BBC Wales has removed its latest promotional trail for Saturday's game from social media following complaints. The video, which shows Welsh rugby fans struggle to answer a question on what's good about England, has been criticised online as being anti-English. BBC Wales says the video was meant to be tongue-in-cheek and no offence was intended. Now, just a few hours before the men's game kicks off, next door at the Arms Park, the women's side will also be facing England. But unlike the men who can devote their time preparing for their fixtures, the women's squad aren't full-time players. They have to juggle training with other jobs. Well, ahead of a BBC Wales documentary that goes out tonight, we've had a sneak preview behind the scenes in the Wales's women's camp.
Pushing their fitness to the limit as they prepare for what could be their toughest match this tournament. This Six Nations, the eyes of the world are on the women's squads, with each of the games broadcast live for the first time in rugby history.
On her face, all the effort.
There's no doubt the game's popularity has grown, and the Wales team proved their worth in their opening game of the championship last weekend, beating Italy by 20 points to 8.
Expertly done.
But the next challenge is England this Saturday, where they kick off at 11:30 at their new home, the Cardiff Arms Park. There's no doubt it'll be tough. For the first time, England go into the Six Nations as full-time players with professional contracts, women who are paid to play. But the Welsh women still play as amateurs, juggling training with everyday jobs. Dydgi Howell spends her days in the classroom as a full-time education studies lecturer at Cardiff Metropolitan University.
Juggling lecture prep and squad sessions takes a lot of my time. Obviously, I have to be organised when I'm going to get my gym sessions in, make sure that I got time for food shopping, nutrition, and then obviously we've got training every night with the Welsh squad.
Meanwhile, centre Gemma Rowland has balanced her passion for rugby with a career in the army.
To make the Six Nations squad is always a huge sort of overwhelming achievement because it makes all of that hard work and all of those sacrifices that we make worth it. I feel a lot of similarities when I put on my army uniform and when I put on a Welsh jersey or a Welsh strip, because you know that you are doing something that's bigger than just you.
Same again, good turns, shoulders round, hips round, drive off.
Wales have won all 5 of their fixtures since former Wales international Roland Phillips took charge last summer.
We have to keep progressing this team, we have to keep pushing the team, we have to keep testing the players, and we have to push them to the limit because a lot of them probably don't know where their limit is anyway, so we have to keep pushing it until we find it.
As all eyes turn to the Arms Park and the match against old rivals England, the hope is all the hard work will pay off.
And you can see the full documentary Wales Women Inside the Scrum. That's tonight at 7:30 over on BBC Two Wales. Now, let me bring you up to date with how the Cardiff Devils are doing. Well, they stunned the Belfast Giants last night to progress to the Challenge Cup final. They won 5-1 to set up the final against either the Sheffield Steelers or the Nottingham Panthers. It all takes place in Cardiff on Sunday, March the 5th, one for the diary. And at the home of the Devils, meanwhile, Wales's netball team lost to New Zealand for the second night on the bounce. Wales got closer to the Silver Ferns last night, who won 72-39. And despite the 2 heavy defeats against the second-best team in the world, Welsh captain Susie Drain has hailed the occasions, saying it's been a great experience for everyone involved. Right, it's time for the latest weather forecast now with all the details. Here's Sue. And Sue, it's feeling cold.
It is, isn't it, Claire? Absolutely bitter. And it's also been something of an east-west split today. West was best for sunshine. Chris took this photo in Pembroke Dock, but much cloudier further east. Grey skies in Llangollen in Powys. And it will be cold and grey again for much of Wales tomorrow, but with some sunny spells. Again, brightest in the west. So tonight it will remain cold with variable amounts of cloud. The odd wintry shower in the hills, but dry for most. Some clear skies too, and a widespread frost forming by dawn. Breezy along the coast, with temperatures falling below freezing inland. Now, the reason it's so cold, we've got high pressure over Scandinavia, easterly winds blowing in, bringing cold continental air, picking up moisture as it crosses the North Sea. Thicker cloud to the eastern side of the UK, but the air turning drier as it moves across the land. So the best of the brightness for the west, particularly West Wales. So tomorrow then, early frost, another bitterly cold day, often cloudy, especially in the east again with the odd snow flurry, but nothing significant. Also some brighter spells at times, more likely to the west of high ground in those brisk easterly winds, and top temperatures tomorrow of between just 2 Celsius in Powys and 4 in Gwynedd. Fairly quiet tomorrow night, some clear spells, some cloud around too. That cloud could be thick enough for the odd wintry flurry nearer the border, but staying dry for most. The coldest night though for a while, down to -3 Celsius in towns across mid Wales, but even colder than this in the countryside in Powys and Ceredigion. So subtle changes then for Saturday. More of a trough coming in off the North Sea, bringing thicker cloud, snow to the eastern side of the UK, but Wales will still see the driest of the weather. So a widespread frost on Saturday, largely dry but thicker cloud for most. Fresh to strong northeasterly winds, making it feel bitterly cold. The cloud could be thick enough for the odd wintry flurry again further east. Sunny spells more likely in the west. And it should stay dry for Wales, England in the Six Nations on Saturday afternoon, but feeling very cold in that biting northeasterly wind. And as Claire said, the roof will be open on Saturday. And just a chance of the odd snow flurry overnight into Sunday, and then similar conditions, often cloudy but dry, still cold, just slightly less so on Sunday. And by Monday, it'll start to turn less cold, and then signs of things becoming a bit milder, with winds turning more southeasterly by the middle of next week. So briefly feeling a bit more spring-like by day at least. Lucy.
We could do with a little bit more mild weather, couldn't we? Sue, thank you very much. A reminder of tonight's headlines now. An influx of new drugs is creating a serious problem in Welsh prisons. That's according to the Prison Officers Association. It says violent behaviour in prisons is increasing and blames new psychoactive substances, which used to be classed as legal highs until the law changed last year. And it's been confirmed tonight that the Neath Labour MP Christina Rees has been appointed Shadow Welsh Secretary in a reshuffle by the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn. She replaces Joe Stevens, who resigned over Brexit. And that is Wales Today. Our next update is at 8, and we're back again after the BBC 10 o'clock news. But for now, from all of us here, thank you for your company and have a really good evening. Bye-bye.